Okay, today I've got a 2003 Buick Rendezvous. The problem today that I'm going to be fixing is the climate control switches are melted down. I pulled this apart previously to verify what the problem was, and the blower motor switch and the wiring behind the switch has melted down. So the first thing you need to do to get this dashboard apart is you've got to remove the lower knee bolster here. And that's held in by a couple of screws. There's one here and another here. So I'm going to take those off real quick and get back to you. Okay, once you get the two Phillips screws undone, removed, this dashboard, like most GM products, will just pop loose. And you can remove it like so. Don't forget the light. Now to get this other dash piece out, you've got to lower the steering column to its lowest setting and put the key in the ignition. I've got the wheels chocked so the vehicle won't move. And from there you just start pulling apart. And what I do is I just try to find an edge that'll lift. I usually start right here, at the bottom. And just gently work around. This dash panel has been broken before from attempted radio theft in the past. So we'll just try to be careful around that spot. These GM plastics break very, very easily, so just try to be careful as you're pulling it. If you feel the need, use a trim tool. But for the most part, these plastic clips come off rather easily. And the hard part is actually getting it worked out around. You see this piece right here, it needs to come out past the upper piece of the dashboard. But with enough wrestling around with the plastics, gentle wrestling, you can get this piece out. So I'll put the camera down and get that done and show you what's next. Alright, I just pulled very gently and this whole piece just comes out. From here I can put it back into park, turn the ignition switch off, and turn the hazard lights off. Now the climate control panel is held in with two Phillips screws. We're going to remove those and get to the next step. Okay, I've got this climate panel unscrewed, and it just comes apart right here. There's a couple of connectors. They come apart very easily. I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but we'll see. There's a little hook right there. You need to get a small screwdriver or something to pry it out. This plug should pop right out. And this is the one that we'll be replacing today. It's melted to the blower motor switch. Now see, that's pretty typical problem with these things. The connection gets dirty or loose, and that current from the blower motor tends to melt the connector. I went ahead and checked the blower motor earlier and made sure that it was working properly. It wasn't drawing an excessive amount of amperage or anything through the wiring, and the connector at the blower motor was okay. Which that's also commonplace for things to melt down, especially if the motor is drawing too many amps. But anyway, there's a connector for the blower motor. It's very well melted. Here's our new panel, brand new from GM. And this is the repair harness. Here's a part number for you, 153-06189. It comes with a bunch of these heat shrink butt connectors, some repair wires, and the connector itself, and some instructions to show you how to use this. And here's the part number on the back of the panel in case you're interested. And this is the part number for the control panel. Okay, so what I did is I stripped down the insulation that was covering the wires here, and it looks to me like there's only 2 or 3 terminals that are damaged, and it's the tan and the light blue wire there. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull these out of the old connector. You've got to get a tool to push these tabs on both sides to pull the blue lock piece out. So I'm going to do that and continue here in a second. Okay, so it turns out I can't remove that blue piece there. It's fused, it's melted. So I'm probably going to end up replacing all 4 of the wires on the top half of this connector. Meanwhile, I'm going to transfer the bottom ones since they look like they're intact. And the way to get these out, is to use a small flathead screwdriver and put it into this slot here. And what you're trying to do is you're releasing the lock tab right there where my fingernail is. You're squishing that down so that it's no longer in the way and it'll pop out. Here's a brand new one. See how this tab's sticking up? So I'm going to transfer all the good wires into the new connector, and all you have to do to be able to reuse these is to pry that tab up a little bit. So I'm going to transfer what I can and we'll get back to you. Okay, here's a quick example of how I do this. Stick the screwdriver there, and using 2 hands, one hand to hold the connector and the other to hold the screwdriver, you just pry up just slightly until you get the little tab sticking out. Let's see if I can get in focus there, like so. Then you take the new connector, you put the wire back into the same spot in the new connector. Let's see if I can do this while holding the camera. Okay, you just push the wire through until you hear it click and it's nice and secure. And I'm just going to repeat that on the remaining wire. Okay, what I did here is I put one of the brand new wires into the new connector. So the one I'm going to repair here is the yellow wire for right now. What I did is I cut the new wire to length, and then I cut back on the yellow wire until I got to good copper, nice clean copper. And I stripped them down. I'm going to use the supplied heat shrink butt connector, and it goes on like any other butt connector. Just crimp them, and then once it's together, you can use a heat gun or a lighter if you're careful to heat the heat shrink and make a good solid connection. Okay, I got the wire crimped on nice and tight, and I'm going to use this solder lighter to heat up the heat shrink. I'm not going to show that on camera because I need 2 hands to do this properly. Okay, I ran the lighter on the heat shrink until it shrunk. Got a good waterproof tight connection. So I'm just going to repeat the same process for the remaining 2 wires. Alright, I've got all the connectors or the wires replaced and crimped on and heat shrunk. So now I'm just going to put these lock clips back in the connector, like so. You just wait till they click, and that secures the terminals in the connector. Just like that. I'm just going to get some electrical tape and clean up my work here and get ready to test. And just like that, everything's wrapped up and ready to go. I'm going to plug it into the new climate control panel and make sure everything's working. Everything plugged in nice and tight, especially on the blower motor side. I'm going to put it back in the dash and test it here in just a second. Okay, I've got the ignition switch on, and moment of truth. Low, medium low, medium, medium high, high. All that's working. And we got the mode to switch. AC light is working. Recirculate button's working. The rear defrost light's working. You can't see it, but the illumination in the back panel, the back of the panel is working. So we're just gonna button the car up and we're good to go. Pushing the dash panel back in, just make sure everything is lined up. It's a GM product, so they go together like Legos. They have the build quality of a Lego, but that's just my own opinion. Alright, now we can continue on to the lower dash. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and reinstall this interior light and make sure everything lines up the way it did when we pulled it out. Got these clips right here, matching ones on the other side. I'm gonna go ahead and put the camera down so I can do this with two hands. Okay, got the panel clipped in. Ready to put the screws back in the bottom here, and there's this little peg here that you want to make sure this under dash panel goes through, just like that. It looks like there could almost be a clip there, but I haven't ever seen a clip on one of these vehicles. So we're just going to put the screws in. There's two of them, and we'll be done.